Fáiltear Nash go dtí sreathadó de Comhrá Le Tomás, I gcóir le EIRGRID. Be mésaí le daoine cáiliúil ón Cumann Lú Clascail agus tá súlagam go mbeidh sibh tainneamh.
I remember saying to him, "This is some trip, Sean Murray. This is unbelievable." He says, "It's not a trip, Muggsy. It's a tour." And I was like, "No, but you know what I mean." He says, "No, I don't."
So proud there again, D&G. Who're they again? D&G. Dalshin Cabana. Yeah, to LNG anyway. Larry and Galvin anyway. That's the brand name anyway.
This season, the show is brought to you by EIRGRID. They're the proud sponsors of the Under-20 All-Ireland Football Championship. Not only is EIRGRID delivering a cleaner energy future for Ireland, they are invested in development of our most promising GA players and the managers that help them to shine. And you're very welcome to the next episode of Comhrá Le Tomás in association with EIRGRID. I'm delighted to say that we have Ryan McMenamin of Tyrone with us this week, and who would have thought, we were just chatting off screen there, and who would have thought that the two of us would be sitting down? Because we had a bumpy ride, myself and Ryan, for many a year, but we've come out the far side of it. And how are you keeping, Ryan? You're keeping well. You were telling me about your trip up the Shannon on the boat. Some fella gave you a boat, even though you had no experience on a boat ever before. How was that?
Yeah, look, I think it's great to be here, Tomás. It's great to be here, and look, I think I'm lucky enough to be alive. Probably after getting on the boat, when a fella asked me, when he gave me a 5-minute tour in the boat, and he says, "Away you go, like, don't panic." But no, look, it was a great experience, and probably with the fact that even there's been a lot of negatives with COVID, it's probably been probably one thing for me, probably something I wouldn't have did at all if there hadn't been no COVID. But look, there was a great country down around Carrick and Shannon from Shambo, Loch Key, so it's fantastic. Now, wee bit of a panic on a lake maybe when I couldn't get the boat to start now in the middle of the lake about 5 o'clock, but I survived and made it. But no, hugely enjoyable, and I'll probably try to do it again.
Only in Ireland that you could actually get a boat, and you're like myself, like I'd have no experience whatsoever on a boat. So you literally never ever drove a boat or handled a boat, and after 5 minutes you were allowed up the Shannon by flying in an old big boat yourself and the family.
He came and he said to me, he says, "Right," he says, "how many years experience do you have?" And I said, "Well, I've never been on it." He goes, "So I'll put that as a 0. I says, 100%, yeah, 0. So he took me down, and as I said, we drove on down around Carrick and Shannon, and he gave me a wee tour, and then he let me drive her, and I was driving, and he says, "Oh, you can handle that really, really well." And he says, "No, you're natural." And he says, "Just don't panic." And I just said to him, right, and once I said, "How am I going to moor this?" And he told me how. He was, "No, just drive up," and he gave me a wee show, and I said, "What about reversing?" He says, "Nah, don't be reversing. It takes too long." He says, "You're good to go, my man." Give me a pat in the back. He says, "I have another couple to get out here." And he left. So his last words he uttered to me was, "Don't panic. Don't panic." And he says, "No matter how the situation is, don't panic. It's not that bad." And it was, in fairness now, the first lock, you come up to different locks in the canal, and the first lock I came up to was, I was panicking now in them because I didn't know how to get into it. And then eventually I got into it, and as soon as I got into it, there's a fella, the block keeper was called Barry. He played for an intermediate club in Leitrim, so Barry was kind of my guide we got chatting about football, and then he had my mobile number, and so Barry was more or less my guide for them 4 or 5 days around. He'd phone me and he says, "Where are you now?" And I says, "Oh, I'm at such and such lock." He says, "What time will you be there at?" And I says, "Oh, I'll be there maybe at 4 o'clock, 5. I'll be down there to see you." So he opened the locks for me. He looked after me. He gave me advice on where to go. So without Barry, I think I would have been lost, So it was good to have.
I heard, is it true that you have a bus license that you use to drive the young lads at your own club? Did you get a special license to drive a bus?
Someone told me about that, but no one would put me into a bus. I know we took. I do mind days when we took our under 14s that we did have we had an A and B team, and usually we would have the B team would play in the afternoon and the A team would play. I used to kind of think more when I think back of it. You were playing county football. Where did you at the time? So the A team would get lifted in the morning at 9 o'clock, and we'd go way up to Gortin or somewhere to play a game. We'd drive back the bus would drop the A team off, the first team, and then the B team would get on, and then would head off the other end of the county to play other football now. But no, I've never driven a bus license now, but I don't know where that story came out of. But someone mentioned that to me before, and I says, no, I'm not that keen on driving now.
I'd be telling fellas that I'd be doing interviews, and they told me that and the first thing that came into my head was Gaza when he jumped on that bus over in England. Remember, he stole a bus, and I said, Jesus Christ, Rice, he got a bus. He drove a bus. I was actually laughing because afterwards, when I was chatting to you out we had a rivalry. We'll talk about that rivalry on the football field, and I suppose you wouldn't call it hatred, but I suppose we didn't know each other, so there was nothing to kind of have a friendly vibe between us. But Dromore, your club, were invited down to Paddy's tournament.
Yeah.
And you came down, and you were with Tyrone at the time. And I remember speaking to you about it after. But the match, I remember, it was a physical enough game. And this is supposed to be a weekend where it's only a bit of crack and a bit of laughing. And I think things got heated because Dara was playing, I was playing, Mark was playing, and you were playing with Dromore, and the Gaeltacht were playing Dromore, and it was a feisty old affair back there. A wild place, Ricey, isn't it?
It was. In fairness, we went down in the main. I think Tyrone were training that weekend. That we came down, and I said, look, club says, hey, will you a chance of going back down? And I mind asking Hart, I said, look, could we go down and play a tournament? And he says, well, I said, look, there's a gap in the weekend, and Mickey, of course, being Mickey, kind of going like, what are you going to do? And I said, oh, there's a tournament the club have entered. So, of course, Mickey says on the Tuesday night, says, look, that's 100% go down. And then he realised he must have did a bit of research on it. And he goes, are you taking this serious? I said, oh, I would take it. He was going ahead then. But in fairness, that was Mickey if he knew you were going to play a bit of football. But no, look, we went down that first night, and I think I'll never forget, the bus driver got lost, and Paddy, God rest him, he landed on the bus, and it was pure darkness, and I don't know, he started taking us about he telling the bus keeper where to go. Wherever we were going, we ended up we were going across a river, or this wee stream, I don't know where it was, and there was a fella sitting beside me in the bus kind of going, where are we going here, or what's going on this here? And I looked up at the top of the bus, and the boys were roaring, hey, Paddy, come on. And he was smiling and laughing away, and he took us to Dunqueen. And he says, next stop, New York, please. He says, there's nothing I can do for you here. And he goes, then he says, back to my place. So I think we went back we threw off the bags, and we had a few beers maybe to settle us into the lifestyle down there, and like to prepare us for the football, so. No, look, it was a thoroughly enjoyable. I think that day we did play. We were well up for it, because we had to travel maybe the Castle Island to play Speedle or somewhere, and then we had to travel back. And we says, we seen maybe an Airheads then. It was kind of that Tyrone Kerry thing. We says, on Gaeltacht, they got playing at their own pitch and made us travel. We says, right, we'll get stuck into these boys. And I do remember your Dara said, one of our players clipped maybe Dara, and he made a go, and I said to Dara, hey, what are you at? And he goes, well, he punched me first. And I said, oh, well. I said, you're on your own there. I told the fella, Shane, you may front up there, take Dara. I think Dara, he kind of respected that I wasn't going to get involved. Well, I was never going to get involved with Dara anyway. And I says, I let the other fella run on with it. But at that stage, there was fights, there was wee scuffles going on all around the pitch. But no, look, I think we said, look, if we were going to go down to the tournament, we were going to respect it. And we said we're going to play as hard as possible, even though then after we partied hard, most of it. But no, we thought we were going to respect it,
You won it, didn't you?
We won it, yeah. It was, I think we beat the Downs in the final.
I was asking, I met you a couple of years after, and I asked you, because I don't think you were drinking on the way back up, and geez, I tried to explain to everybody where we are in terms of, it's like anywhere. You go to West Mayo, you go to West Donegal, it's a long way from anywhere. But to travel from West Kerry up to Tyrone on a bus where lads were celebrating and drinking and you weren't, it was an awful journey back up, I'd say, was it?
I tell you, it was one of the worst journeys of my life. Hey, it was one of the worst journeys, and I just knew it. And the boys everyone was going party because this is right. They're going to celebrate going up, and of course you'd have been out the night before, and the stomach wasn't good, and then there's one of my cousins. He's in New York now. he was sitting sipping a bottle of beer beside me, and I had to say to the bus, my stomach would never be as great after if you're out. I was going on the bus and the heat in the bus, and I just had to say, "Come here, stop, pull over here." Oh, and I ratched and I looked around and all the boys were banging the window. And I got back onto the bus and all I got was, "You're a complete disgrace. Look at the shape of you for a county player." I was going, boys, I had to sit the whole way up. Oh, it was horrendous. We didn't get up to maybe 12 o'clock that night. It was maybe, it took us
horrendous.
It took us 10 or 12 hours because then stopped off in Dublin and the boys stopped off in Dublin for a feed that we didn't eat, and then we headed on up the road then. Of course, when the boys stayed in the feed for they didn't eat, they wanted to stay on then, maybe just for the food to digest a while then, so they thought we'll take a few pints that helped. It was one of them things, and I said, "But so what could you do? We were happy we won it." And I think we were. In fairness, we were happy. Some of them days, even though I was hungover going up in the bus, it was actually really good crack. It's one of them days you always kind of remember back, and even if you're meeting a couple of the boys and that's not playing or out of the town now or out of the parish and they come back in, it's one of the first things that he mentioned. He goes, "Do you mind the weekend we had in Potties?" And you'd always say the Potties tournament, and it always brings up great memories,
You had great years with the club, Ryan. You won a few counties, didn't you?
We won a few and we lost a few, and probably that team probably that was coming, that we went down, we were probably felt, I was maybe about 25, 26, but we had a great bunch of young fellas coming through, and probably we felt we were on the cusp of something, and because we won our first ever senior title the year before, 2003 was the league, and then we'd got to the championship final and Tyrone that year, but we'd won a league, and for us winning the league, it was great for the first time ever for the club. And then, but we'd always been knowing that Hinker and Tyrone, that our club was cursed, that there was a curse, that we'd been in maybe 7, 8 championship, 9 championship finals maybe, and we always it's kind of like the Mayo curse, but there was a curse in our club, and we eventually won the first one in 07, beat in the final in 08, won in 09. 1 at 11, beat in 12, and probably ourselves we've lost maybe games the past decade, maybe goals in the last minute, and we probably felt we're disappointed probably with the squad that we had, but that we should have won more. But no, look, it's great winning, and at the same time for me, probably when I look back, I was winning with the county and I was winning with the club, and it's always it's always great coming back, and I never found it any difficulty coming back, and because your club was always challenging for something, and even they asked you, did you miss county football when you came back? And for me, it wasn't, because when I came back, it was like coming back into a county setup, because the boys were always pushing, going on, and it was great. And for me, like, you were just jumping from Tyrone, maybe you won the All-Ireland, club would give you your week or two off to celebrate, and then you were back in playing club, and you were back in that pushing for championship and pushing for that. And for me, it was great, and probably when I look back, when you're a player, you don't realise maybe how good you had it maybe sometimes.
I know, yeah. It's always when you look back at these things. The club football in Tyrone, and during the lockdown they showed it last year on television, and the club football was outstanding above there. It would have a reputation as being tough and hard. How would you describe the club football in Tyrone?
To me, it's competitive, and I'll be saying this maybe to the front. Our leagues dictate the championship. And so if you're not playing, we've played star games, and this year probably with COVID, and they had no relegation last year, and a lot of the clubs we've had to play 9 games without your county players. So that means there's no 9 games. So there's clubs like the clubs there, the smaller clubs that would have 3-4 county players. It's affecting them, but they're affected. But I've been at a couple of the games, and it's just. It makes you get better, and there's a great competition in Tyrone, and it's just football. I know our near neighbours is Matty Donnelly's club, and it wouldn't be the greater. It's more of a mutual. We don't like each other, but we respect each other. But we're always trying to do something more than us. Be competitive on the field. We're trying to be more competitive on the field, and it seeps in round through the county, and it's even at club level, even coming down to ladies football. It's very, very competitive, and it's hard football, and it's good. Like, it's even all our club championships of last year was immense. Clubs went for it, and you looked at Dungannon won it last year, and they hadn't won it in 50 odd years, but no county players. But chatting to some of them, and they'd say, "No, we knew we were going to win it." And it's the same. Every team knows in Tyrone, look, if we can put in a shift here, we can win it. But no, look, if it makes Tyrone, and I know maybe down south, they don't like leagues is kind of wishy washy, and this here, and Tyrone's the leagues is competitive. Like, I know I missed the Dromore Trellick game one day, and I was over in Portugal. And it was 2019, 2018. Like, there was we played it late. Like, there was over 1,000 at it, like 1,000, 2,000 at it, like, and that was just people on a Sunday night were going, and that's Dromore played for like this time, and it was just after the restrictions lifted, and there was a lot of people from Fermanagh would come and watch the club football. I know if you go up to when the club championships on before the restrictions, you had people from Derry, you had people from Armagh, you had people from Donegal. Ryan McHugh and Mark McHugh they go to a lot of the Tyrone club football. I'd always run into them there, and Martin, and usually they're tagging along with Rory Yeller, so they'll always go. But there's a massive interest in it, and look, to me, the clubs do massive work at it. Like, it's fantastic.
It's strange to say, like, sometimes, and look, Tyrone Intercounty would sometimes, for the last whatever amount of years, be described as kind of play a more cautious game or a defensive game or whatever way you want to describe it. But then people automatically think it's the same with the club football inside in Tyrone, that they have to be playing it, and it's not. And you'd be glad to see on television then, hang on a second, Jesus Christ, they're playing better fucking football than any club football that you'd watch. And it was during that lockdown that we saw club action above in Tyrone. You're saying, whoa, that's unreal. And then do you find that people would say, Christ almighty, why don't they fucking play the county? Why doesn't the county play like that?
Yeah, look, you've different, but I think that's the different. I think that's the beauty of the football. Like, you're going to have, like, I know Dromore have been in at the club matches. You could have one team will just play wide open football, and then you'll have another team will play they'll play the 15 men behind the ball. But whatever it was about the football last year in Tyrone, it was immense. Like, it was teams just went for it, and teams played, and you're always going to get that. Clubs is people are going to say, why don't Tyrone play that? Or it comes down to management and styles, what they wanted. But look, Tyrone do, like, it's competitive league, and that it filters on down to intermediate and filters all down to the junior football. But no, look, I think there's a huge passion for it. I know in our own club there's a huge passion for it, huge passion around this here. But it's great to see, and looking, you probably see the benefits of maybe this year coming in, that Tyrone are trying maybe to be a wee bit more progressive, but the players they've hopefully bought into what Brian and Fergal's doing. But no, look, we're blessed in Tyrone that we do have a real good competitive league and structures,
I had Frankie Dolan on last week, and Frankie was one of the great forwards, and I wanted to ask him, but I didn't. The chat was going on. We were talking about other stuff. We were talking about all sorts of stuff other than football, actually. It was funny enough, but I wanted to kind of ask, and it's been bounced around the place lately in the newspapers, and you're an intercounty manager. You're close to the club scene as well. Do you think the game has become too sanitized? Like, for example, you're a defender inside right now, and we both played defenders back in our day, right? If you go for a ball, or if you go for a man to challenge a man, you could get a yellow card, you could get a black card, you could get a red card. Okay, so challenging the man. If you stand off the man because of the fear of actually challenging a man, they get a free kick for catching the ball. Do you think that the game, with the rules they have brought in, has become too, sanitized altogether? That maybe this free-flowing football that we're seeing, Ryan, that this high scoring has something to do with the fact that maybe defenders are freaking minding themselves in terms of actually challenging or putting a belt in where they should. Like,
I think probably look at it's a fact of there's a fact of a lot of factors coming into it, and I think probably the rules have been brought in. There's rules brought in to stop stop this defensive football. They thought it was too defensive and that sort of. But I think before the rules had been brought in, there was a change. You could see probably the mindset saying there was this change. To me, as a defender, now looking at it and coaching maybe with Fermanagh and coaching maybe even with the ladies team up here, and everything's now stacked in the forwards' favour. And I always felt personally that maybe HQ was trying to push it away, that they wanted a high scoring game all the time because it could put bums on seat and makes it attractive to watch. And yes, look, the referees, they're more, to me, I think the tackling element and the intensity maybe has gone out of the game, because one of the factors, you're more or less, it comes from the forward play now, because forwards are told, and every team's told, don't take the ball into the tackle. If you see anybody come, you just move the ball. So forwards aren't really, they'll not take on a 1v1 now, not unless they think it's genuine, or not unless you have a player maybe like Tommy Conroy from Mayo, he goes straight at it all the time. Defenders now, a lot of the time, are told shadow as much as possible, because he says everything's in the forward's favour. And so shadow as much as possible, be as close, and just hope he messes up. And it's very hard in the defender, but you can see it in games. Maybe there is games that when there is a tackle coming in, I know there was a tackle done on Sunday, and I don't know, I can't mean was it Damien Comer? He got a yellow card for it, and it was at the best it was just about a free kick. And I do think it's probably coming from higher up, that they just want to see as much up and down. They want to see as much. And for defenders, to me, it is hard being a defender, because sometimes I do think the referees, they're under that much pressure themselves, scrutiny. They're saying, right, if I want to get a right game here the next week, I have to start ticking these boxes, and these boxes is no tackling, no this here, and maybe giving the benefit to the forward. But I do think it has become sanitised, and I do think just that the element, like safety is, of course, is important, but I do think the art of defence it's slowly dying, like so.
Jesus Christ, the two of us we'd be in serious trouble.
I don't think I'd be playing too much, to tell you the truth, and that would be the be all and end all of it. Like, I think even the 1v1 tackling, and you're going there again. It comes to the referee. A lot of it comes to the referee, and it depends what sort of because the thing about the rules, it's how you interpret them, and it's your opinion on the rules. So my opinion and your opinion could be completely different on the rules. Could be completely different to a forward. A forward, he could be saying, "Oh, these rules is great, like these are fantastic." But I do think it's become a bit sanitised. But look, hopefully, maybe it recalibrates itself.
I think what like we were watching the match last day, and I think it's gone so far now the wrong way that there was a challenge made, and it was a fair challenge. I think it was Silk that came in with a hard shoulder, and straight away, because we're so used to these fouls being given, I didn't see it as a foul at all. He went for a fair shoulder, caught him fair shoulder. The actual replay showed that. But the reaction straight away from supporters, from players, is, hey, that was a foul. But yeah, look, referees have a tough job. I'd hate to have it. What was I going to say, Ryan? Did you play minors and 20s for Tyrone?
No, I never played. Never played at all. So.
What year did you come into the senior setup?
It would have been 99. It would have been off. It had been. I came in. They had a development setup, and they had what they did. I think, from what I mean, is they had trials for boys from the development setup. They had the squad. And, I mean, myself and Collie McCullough, the two of us, because we had to go up the road to Dunamore. Maybe it's about 30 miles from my house. And so I'll never forget it. Saturday mornings at about for 9 o'clock, and we were driving up the road, and we were kind of going, "Are we mad doing this?" And so we had to do that there for about 8 weeks, and then the panel got cut, and then we were asked into the development squad, and then you stayed on, trained, and then I was asked into the squad maybe 2000. Then just you stayed on like so, and then it was just didn't take off from there. It took maybe about a year or so to get yourself settled down and into the squad, and knowing what you had to do. Like, probably, if you put my hand in my heart, I would say, as I was a bit of a character when I was a young cub. Only for Art and Eugene, my county career wouldn't have wouldn't have started now, because it took me that year maybe to realise what you had to do to be a county player. And in fairness, Art and Eugene would have always.
Art was a bit of a character, was he?
As Art told me, maybe one day we had training maybe in St Patrick's, the day after St Patrick's Day, and of course, me being a young man, kind of thinking good intentions, and of course we says, look, we'll be smart about it. Me and a couple of fellas from Dromore, and I says, he was going to under 21 training he was going to under 21, throwing under 21 training. I'll never forget it. He says, we'll go up to Belfast a day earlier, and he says, we'll not be tempted, and he says, we'll come home on St Paddy's Day. So he had a house in Belfast, and of course 2 men flying, enjoyed ourselves the 16th. 17th, we says, look, we'll go down, we'll get a fry, and we'll be really good. Hey, and geez, everyone seemed to be having a wild good time, and he turned around to me, he came with the old famous one that's been the downfall of every man, hey, and he says, we'll just stay in here for one. Ricey, and I says, so what's one going to hurt? So next thing poor Ryan realises then, he says, he's watching the end of the All-Ireland Club final, celebrating how Crossmaglen were winning, and I was kind of going to myself, how did this happen? The next thing I realised, I'm coming with the head down, coming to training. Sorry, man, going into training. In fairness, Big Art, we trained about, and I must have put in a tackle or whatever, and Big Art looked at me and he called me over. I chatted to him, and I was trying to stay back. And fairness to Art, he says, right, he says, he didn't give me a bollocks, and he said, look, county football is very hard, and you have to go with it. And he says, what I want you to do is go up and collect them water bottles up there for me first. So I went up and ran around, collected them, and came back. He says, no, just keep on running. So when the football was going on, throwing go football, I was doing laps around the field, and I'll never forget it. He made me do the laps and laps. And the boys were doing the warm run, and the laps were still going on. And he turned around, he says, well, how do you feel? I said, tired. He says, never come in that shape again. I says, no problem. It was a learning, but in fairness, with them, probably it was my first time ever dealing with the counties coming up. I was maybe 20, 21, so it was an experience. It stayed with me,
How were Tyrone going that time at senior level? This was pre 2003. What year did Mickey come in?
2000
as manager. He came in 03.
03. I tell you, Tyrone got beat 95. They got beat in the final 95, 96, and then they were in a bit of a dip. Just maybe there was a hangover 97, and I think we hadn't won an Ulster Championship game maybe in 5 years until 2001. We beat Armagh in the first round, and we weren't going that well. And in fairness, there was a remnants of the 95, 96 teams. There's Peter, Chris Lawn, there's Fuller, Paul Devlin, Faye, Devlin. There's players in there, and some of them were coming near the end. And the staged in, we had all that young minor team: Brian McGuigan, Stevie O'Neill, Cormac McNallen, God rest him, Hub Hughes. We had a real good batch coming in then, and then from about 2001, then it started to kick off. We won Ulster, and then we won the Tyrone's first National League in 02. So Tyrone were kind of at a low ebb on probably when I first came into the panel, and there was a hangover. There was a massive hangover in Tyrone maybe from the 96 semi-final, and it took a couple of years for the Tyrone psyche to get over that. And look, it's still, as I said, like people raved about this Tyrone team, and that's not, but a lot of the Tyrone team, and it took sometimes it takes the players themselves, and you can turn around and you can blame managers and say this here. Tyrone, people forget we got beat by Sligo at 02 in Croke Park, and probably for me as a player and going out there, and even yes, Mickey came in. For a lot of the players, I do think that was a defining point, and a lot of people do forget about it, because I mind going up the road on the bus, and you had Tyrone supporters giving you the piles of abuse and giving you the not nice hand signals, and then you were run down. You was who's really to blame for this here? And you kind of say to yourself, well, these boys have give us everything here, like, and then, but you kind of sometimes you have to look at yourself and say, well, look, am I doing enough? And probably at that stage as county, I think we all kind of realised we weren't doing enough. And when Mickey came in, Mickey demanded, he goes, oh, aye, but you need to be doing more than enough. And he expected us to do more than enough. So once he kind of got on that psyche, kind of going, right. Like as I said, people talk to me about tactics and going this here. Mickey was one of the best men. He would just say, right, bang, he would give you a framework and say, nice, but play the game as you've seen it. And for us, that was, I know it was liberating to us. You know, this, you had tactics, you watched this here, you could rattle Tomás Ó Sé, but hey, look, play it as you see it. And if you thought something was on the field, wasn't going right, Mickey was more than happy for you to go and say, hey, Mickey, such and such there. And he goes, right, he says, should move. For us, for a lot of that, he gave us confidence to do that, but a lot of the time it was player driven, player led, and it's looking into that kind of going like, yes, you need the managers, you need to do that there, but sometimes I do think probably people do get caught up in the whole thing, kind of going, well, he has to tell me to stand there. Yes, but you have to play football, and I think Tyrone were always waiting for it to happen without actually doing it themselves, and I think that was the major point maybe, and people do forget that, like it was only a year before Sligo beat us, and it's not a magic switch, it's the players' mindset, you know, and I think see Mickey helped that change, but I think the players themselves, they caught it, well, we all caught ourselves on, like.
I remember as a young fella, Paddy was in charge of Kerry, and he was in charge of Munster, and he was in charge of the Railway Cup teams, and I went over to Killarney one day, and it was one of the best duels I've ever seen. It was very like James O'Donoghue and Keith Higgins above in Killarney, or above in Limerick in the All-Ireland semi-final, where both of them could actually genuinely put up their hand for man of the match. I saw Moynihan and Peter Canavan going head-to-head over in Killarney. It was the best freaking duel I've seen in a long, long time. What was Canavan like in terms of... Canavan would have been there, obviously, pre-Mickey Hart. Did Canavan and all that boy straight into Mickey Hart? Did they get an energy from the younger lads that were coming through on Mickey Hart? And they obviously bought into it.
They are. Look, as I said, Peter was always, like, as a captain, for me, like, and you'd always watch different men going to captain, but the thing about Peter was his actions, you know, and not the fact that you watched Peter, like, you watched him do the hard runs. He did the hard runs. There was none of this kind of going, well, look, I'm Peter Canavan. Every time he was doing the harder runs with you, he was going that. He never asked no breakout, and he always bought in, like, in fairness. And the thing about Peter, when he did, like, he was always down the back of the bus playing cards with us. Most of the fact that he knew, because he always won all the time, and he always took the bloody money off us, and so he was happy, you know. And plus two, he knew that, and he knew all us, the younger players, we all looked up to him, and he says, like, and we were all like, I didn't mind losing 30 quid to Peter, because I'm losing it to Peter Canavan, and then next thing he would tell you,
give it to him.
You were just kind of going on this here, but he bought in, look, and like, and it felt like the lads respected him, Chris Lohan, who'd been there, and they totally bought in, and like, and as I said, like, just there, like, Peter would never roar, like, yes, he would have spoken the change room before, but there was never no big mental speeches. Yes, he would have been geeing men up, but where Peter Canavan won probably everything that we followed from I see Peter Canavan, as I said, as the captain, was on the training field, just watching him train, and I was just going that, and people say to you, like, you're a good defender, or people say, how do you become a good defender? If you're marking Peter Canavan, if you're marking Stevie O'Neill, you can, and even Peter would, if you were marking him, he would always give you tips. Well, look, this is what I like as a forward, so just be thinking about it. And then you had Chris Lawn in your ear, kind of going, well, look, you kind of dived in too deep there. Don't do that. Just stand. And he said, and he would give you tips, and they would always keep, if they thought maybe some of the younger boys were maybe getting ahead of themselves, he'd give you a wee jag. You never want to get a jag from cricket with training. He'd give you a wee jag. You kind of go, oh, right, head down again, work. Very simple. To me it was great, and to me it opened my eyes just maybe on leadership, and always going, like, people think the captain has to be the man roaring and kind of go at the change rooms. And I just watched them boys do it at training, and it was great. You know, it was absolutely great watching them. You know,
I always said it that that Tyrone forward line were the best forward line that I ever came across. Geez, you had McGuigan and you had Dooher and you had Muggsy and you had Canavan and you had O'Neill, and I was saying, Jesus Christ, like during that time, I'd say your backs and forwards or your trial games, A backs on A forwards was freaking hell for leather. Did you have challenge games, or was it the Dubs are always saying at the moment that the in-house games were savage? I'd say your matches, because you had a tough defence as well, yourself and Jordan. You had a severe hard defence as well. Were they tough matches? Who used you pick up?
Come here, I'll tell you. It used to be, the teams would be mixed in among each other. Sometimes they'd play A's against B's. Sometimes you go, and then. But the problem was then, Mark Hart giving me the absolute roasting of a lifetime, because then you had a pile of boys wanting to get into the squad. And then you're kind of going, right, this here. Or sometimes then Ryan Mallon would come on you and you're kind of going, Jesus, no. And Ryan would just be, he was banged on. He says, I'm going to be starting this team. And Ryan was an absolutely great fella, and a great footballer. But Ryan's mentality was, I'm starting here. You're not going to make. He goes, I'm starting here. And next thing you're kind of going, and I came up, me and Ryan always clashed at club level. And I was coming as here. And we'd clash in the game. But he was coming with that intensity, and you were kind of going, I'm going to have to watch this man here. You know, I'm going to have to watch this man here. And he goes, you had to go. Like, then house games were great, but the training was always at a good, high, intense level. Like, of course, you're always going to have an odd fallout, and it was always good, you know. But like, it was always forgot about, and maybe sometimes then like it would be brought up, maybe, and there'd be a bit of laughing and joking about it, maybe after a championship win or a championship defeat, you know. But the one thing about it was like just the football was done at a high level. If there was a big hit, that's where we prided ourselves maybe on just being real good tacklers and just being aggressive tacklers. So I think that's what I find, and I do kind of, when we were playing maybe small 3v3s, 4v4s, for splitting the defence with forwards, it got really aggressive. We always wanted to beat the forwards, and we always want that to.
Yeah.
Jesus, there was one game. It went on for about 20 minutes. It was forwards against defenders attack, and I don't know what happened the session, but because I think it was Paddy or Fergal, I can't remember what they says. All right, we'll move on here. We go, no, it's not over yet. It's not over. Jesus, we were wrecked. There were men just beating each other. So, and then off we went, sprinting to the next one. But you could see, he probably in his heart was loving this, that boys were actually looking to take lumps out of each other all the time and get on with it after, you know, that sort of way. So there's always a bit of slagging if the forwards won, always a bit of slagging if the defenders won. But look, it's funny, like, if we were probably only as good, like yourselves, Armagh at that stage. So as I said, like, competition's always good, like you always have to go. And because I was watching the 05 final again and just coming back at it, and I didn't realise how many long balls these boys put in the first half.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I was kind of going myself, if they were doing this today, there'd be people in the stands having a meltdown. I couldn't believe and I forgot playing about it. I said to myself, Jesus, there was balls coming in one time to the gooch, and I was kind of going, we were breaking it out, and then I had to come back out to them. You were driving in it again. Now, it probably was a tactic. I think he's got the first goal off it. There was long ball, but I just couldn't believe the amount of long balls. It took me by surprise, and maybe, as I said, maybe the brain maybe only looks back at the fancy bits of it, you know. But it was, to me, it was crazy. But you going back, like, you said, a fantastic forward line, you said a fantastic defence. Like, the players you just had, like, you had Cooper, you had your clubmate, Sidaro Canada, like, but his movement was up. Like, anytime we knew we couldn't give him space, because he always seemed to see that pass, and it was toss, like Tyrone respected Kerry, and but, like, as we said, like, we respected him to a certain point, but then we said, look, we want to beat you. With Armagh, look, we looked at Armagh and Stephen McDonald, Rowan Clark, Oshie McConville, the two McAtees. You're always going to have to be good. Like, we knew any slip, yous were going to come in, Armagh was going to come in, and we said, no, we can't allow that, you know, and we have to keep on going. But no, it kept training competitive, and look, we had a good time. Maybe we should have won more. Maybe we should. it was hard, but look, that's just the way life goes. You can't really cry about your losses all the time.
I was, I agree with you on Ryan Mellon. Ryan Mellon freaking skinned me for about 20 minutes in an All-Ireland final. He got 2 or 3 scores off me, and he wasn't on the radar. You know, Tyrone, like you said there, you wouldn't be expecting other fellas to be as competitive, so you might be kind of focusing on danger players or whatever. He freaking skinned me. The other thing you were saying there about the kicking the long ball, I watched an Armagh game that we lost in 2002, and if you compare the football, the quick football now, the Dublin play and Tyrone are capable of playing it, Donegal are capable, the quick, fast Mayo football, and you were looking at the ball, we were firing in, and it was just, and we knew no different, Ricey. That was the kind of, like, you were more measured than we were, but we coughed up. I watched the game lately and I turned it off after 20 minutes. I said, Jesus Christ, we lost this game by a point, and look what we were doing all the time. I was going to ask you about the Kerry thing, because Galway were around, Armagh were around, and you had an unbelievable rivalry. I used to love watching the like, if you talk about referees now, the matches you had with Armagh, which were totally fair, hard matches, half of you would probably be sent off right now if they were implementing the rules. But in those years, the noughties, you won a few All-Irelands, we won a few All-Irelands, but we could never, ever get over ye. And the one thing that used to bother me, it wasn't bother me, but I'd always say, no matter how ye were going in the championship, I used to always, afterwards, when you had us beaten, say, Jesus Christ, what is it? I used to feel that you used to always lift it an extra 10, 15% than what you had in championship. And you'd be coming out the gate, fucking hell, caught again.
No, I don't know. It was probably, I think probably a lot of it stemmed, even coming back to 03, and a lot of it stemmed, me personally, that we were being written off maybe coming in 03, and we've been written off. You would have been written off before, maybe in the pundits, that look, we can't win the big games. Where I think Joe Brawley might have called us maybe an under-21 team, and I think that really grew. We were kind of going, we're not, and the boys were saying, look, Kerry, and I think they were looking at the same thing, maybe Kerry going to get back at Armagh, and we kind of said to ourselves, no, it's time here now, like, what difference is us as Kerry, and you have the tradition of winning so much, and we were kind of going, but that's, our psyche was, but that's irrelevant, that's in the past. It's not gonna help Kerry win. It's not going to help Kerry win in Croke Park. And when we looked at the videos, and we did look at yous, and we looked at the watching, that you did like to kick in a lot of ball, and we watched through the games. But the one thing that we did realise was that maybe it's probably the start pieces that you hadn't been tackled really too, that people maybe stood off. We says, so what do we have to lose? Let's tear into these boys and see where it takes us. Once we found maybe at the half time, maybe he says, this is working here. We says, these boys just like time to play. I said, let's keep on betting at them to see what happens, and it's just, we were kind of thought and then probably then there was a bit after with Pat Spillane, and then even maybe Kerry he's won the All-Ireland, and I think maybe your chairman made a comment over football's back in the rightful place. And then all that psyche, because in Tyrone kind of, it's hard to get out. We've just a bit of a northern mentality. It's kind of us against the world, kind of, and we're kind of going, right. He goes, Kerry, we want to get them, and we kind of knew it's going to be reciprocated, because these boys will want to probably beat us again, just to put us down. But we says, no, we weren't having that. So we says, every time we met Kerry, we always says, we says, we've just got to show these boys, and look. It's a rivalry then. Look, and it's always good, because it probably made you a lot better, and it made us a lot better. But we enjoyed beating. He's like, you can't, because of course you can't deny it. You can't deny it, because you Kerry are for everyone, for years. Kerry, you know it yourself. Kerry are up. These are the pinnacle, and gives the most All Irelands. Of course, you're going to take pride in beating. Of course, you're going to come, and you just always we always liked the faction that we were the new boys coming up on town, you know, and we were here to knock the old guard off, you know, and we took a bit of pride in that, you know.
I remember it happened in 2003, and geez, it was the end of Paddy because Paddy was left and Jack Connor came in then. And we won in 2004 then, and then 2005 was the big one again. And we thought, geez, we know what's coming now, and we know what Tyrone are going to bring this time. They'll bring this savage intensity. And I think a lot of people focus on the intensity, but they freaking didn't focus on how good footballers everywhere, all over the pitch that you were. But that's besides the point anyway. When we lost the game, I don't know, do you remember, 2005 was the year we went to Australia with the Aussie Roos.
That's right.
And after the final, obviously we weren't part of the training sessions because the two teams were involved at the final. So after that, about 5 or 6 days after freaking drowning our sorrows down in Killarney, you get a phone call. The last training session for Australia, you have to be. So I rang Gooch and I rang Brazzy. I says, are you going up to this? I didn't want to go up at all. And I said, oh, Jesus Christ. And I'd be honest, the reason I didn't want to go up, I didn't know you on any level at that stage. I didn't want to know you. But I was going up. I said, we'll go. So I went into the elevator and I met you and I said, oh, Jesus Christ almighty. I didn't, of all the fellas, I says, I don't want to talk to this fella. We were in the elevator. And then when we got out, I must say that whole trip was, for me anyway, because of the Tyrone fellas, the best crack I ever had out there. Hope Hughes wasn't on the trip, and I think he should be added even as a water boy from now on any trip that goes abroad. He was the greatest fun I had. I know we took the football serious and we trained hard. I'm not saying that. I'm not laughing it down. But Jesus, we enjoyed that trip, right? It was a great trip.
It was, and probably it was, as I said, like, I think you talk back even to 2004 Paddy's tournament. I think me and you kind of clashed on the field, and I do mean there was words said to each other, and we were just clashing, and you knew kind of just the rivalry was there. And even I think even that back in 04 went back to Paddy's bar maybe, and I know Mark was there playing. I'll never forget, he was playing pool, but he just waved over. There was kind of going, I'm not. He says that Tyrone, you kind of knew the thing, but no, like as we said, like the Tyrone lads went down. We were of the same opinion. We go, do we really want to go here? Like, and we said, look, we haven't trained or haven't did it here, and we says, look, we'll go, and that was one of the things the Kerry boys. We says, what do you think they'll be? Not what they like, you know, and then. Look, once we got to know you then, or know the boys then, we had great crack, you know, and as probably look at it was. You probably didn't know us, and we didn't know you, and then no one kind of knew. And then I think maybe once, as you said, that chat in the elevator kind of cleared the whole thing that we were going to train hard, but look, we were going to. Once you found out we enjoyed ourselves as well, everyone was kind of on the same page that we were. Look, as I said, Hub was out in Australia. He kind of geared the welcome party for us, you know. And as says, Hub's a great man. He's a character, as the man would say. He's about for having the crack. But no, look, for like, and to me, no, even some of the boys.
He was the first man. We were inside in a bar, and the crack was 90. And it was a great trick, to be honest with you. It showed how serious you were about being serious and calming down. A guy pulled him. 2 bouncers pulled him, and they were freaking exiting him. He says, no, hold on. I want to talk to you. So the straight face came on. He pulled out his passport. That is my passport. I need this to go home. I guarantee you that I will behave myself for the next 2 hours. You can have my passport. And if I don't behave myself, you can keep my passport. And that's me. The crack was so good inside in the bar, he did not want to leave. I remember was it the first match? You'll remember this, Chris Johnson and poor old Philly Jordan. Jeez, he got an awful bit. But I kudos to you. You were outside and you were standing in front of a big fella and he was looking down at you. And I was watching this. And you gave him a snap into the balls. You gave him a right snap into the balls. And he went down like a sack of spuds. He went down like a little girl. I got a weakness of laughing. Not because of the way he fell down, but because the whole Aussie team are now going to focus on you. I said, how is he going to deal with this now? How is he going to actually... So I was going in at half time and I was actually gave you a laugh. I said, what the fuck are you going to do if you're expecting help? No, I was saying it in jest like. But it was, it was a wild time.
I do mind that, but I mind the way he was kind of roaring at me, and he was kind of going, "What are you going to do, you wee Irish prick?" And he says, "What are you going?" He kept offering me on, and I kept going, "What are you going to do?" And I says, "I'm just going to do this." And he says, "What is it?" I was he was about 6'7". There was no way I was going to get up to him, and I had him a box, and he was straight down. And I remember, I'll never forget when you were coming in, kind of going, he goes, "They're all coming for you," and I said, "I will." And I'll never forget Dr. Con from Cork. He says, Con turned around. I mean, he goes, "Fair play to you, Ricey. Fair play to you." And he walked on. And I'll never forget. I think I won a ball, and I don't know if you mind it, but I won a ball, and I must have laid it off. And two of the Australians did. One kind of tucked me head high, and the other one tucked me up, and I could feel my back moving. And I hit the ground, and I said to myself, "I have to bounce up here really, really hard here, because I says these boys are going to think I'm down." So I bounced up, and I wasn't right, And the two Australians kind of looked at me, and they says, "Fair enough." I walked over, and we must have scored. And you came up to me, and you says, "Hey, that's your score." And I says, "I don't care." I didn't say it in that. I says, "I don't care. I'm way off into this." And I went and walked. I said, "Wait, Tomás, I'm way off walking in this corner." I could turn around and see you laughing, kind of going, "Aye, maybe you should." I said, "I don't care. I don't care anymore."
I remember that. I remember that because I said it to you after.
I said, "No."
And he said, I remember we were inside in the bar, and you came up and you said, Jesus, when you came up and said that was your score, he said, the thing that was running through my head was, "You fuck off, that's my score."
I was just totally gone. I said, I could feel back, you could feel everything moving. I said, and this man's on me, and we were getting hammered. And I said, "This man's on me about 1 point." I said, "No, I just have to go to the corner." I said, and just reflect on what I'm going to do here. Like, Jesus, I never felt it. I was.
Oh, Lord.
It was.
But do you know the crack and the banter, and as you said there with the club, with Dromore, it's what carries you on. And people, it's not that you go nuts or you're doing anything wrong, but it's a kind of a bond that's created. And I always hear Muggsy talking about your Monday club with Tyrone, and from say during the period that we were playing, I wouldn't have seen anything like. I would have just seen what was on the pitch and the way he played in the pitch and the hard edge and the fucking toughness that was there. But you had great characters in that team. You must have had great fun off the pitch. Like, you'd still be tight, Ricey, would you?
Yeah, look, would see each other. Look, we've a WhatsApp group in there, and probably with Tyrone, it's kind of spread out, and there's a lot of ways different. But no, look, it's probably again. I think there's always good banter. Now, you always had your characters. You had Horst Devlin was a character. Hub, you'd always go. Brian McGuigan, even Canavan himself. Canavan was probably the master of the pranks. I know there was a stage maybe in 2005 where Hart had to call a halt. He says, "Look, boys," he says, "this is great. This is fantastic that you are really bonding. You are really going well. This is great. You all enjoy each other company. He says, but these pranks have to stop." It got to the stage, Muggsy driv the kitman's van, whatever way up in Clare, and it's kind of under the scoreboard and sort of 45-degree angle. But whatever way he angled it, it was underneath the scoreboard, and it was a wild hand and reversing it out. And with car keys of the kit van was stole, men's clothes were stole, different stuff. And even Canavan lost his shoes one day, and I think we had stolen on him. But me and Andy McGinley were driving back up to Belfast, but we had left it on the pillar because we knew once he came out, he'd have to look to the right and go out, get out of the car, pick the shoes. And we knew, because usually Canavan, he was looking to get away early, but we'd had his shoes and he was looking around the change room, couldn't find it, so he had nothing to wear to go home. And more or less, just then, we seen him, we had to get out, and we drove past him, he was just watching, he seen his, like, it was pure childish. We waited till he got out, and you could see him shaking the head, and he left it, and we drove past waving, and he was like this here, kind of going. And then first thing Andy McGinley said to me, he goes, "Oh, we're screwed." He says he's going to get us back. He says all we've did is take shoes off him. I says, "And we're in trouble." But it was in fairness, there's always good banter and there's always boys going. And in fairness, we enjoyed each other's company a lot, And then even when we're out with the Monday clubs, I know Mickey maybe. I think he's kind of maybe eased away, maybe, but as we always trained Tuesday night, there was never any man that was in the Monday club trained Tuesday night, and they trained really, really, like you always trained hard. You weren't right, but look, you got yourself back, and as a way then, look, you could enjoy yourself. And usually when that happened, everyone then straight and narrow, bang, another 3 or 4 weeks, you're back into the game. But no, look, it was the banter was good, but again, when you're not bubbling, you know yourself, Tomás, like you probably had great crack as well. And at the time, you don't think about it, but when you start thinking about when you are meeting up, like if you do meet up and you do chat to boys, all you hear is, you mind the time we went there, or you mind the time we trained in Greenmount Agriculture College one day, and there was a snack machine in it, and it's outside Antrim, and I'll never forget, because it was late night. We're watching, I don't know what, we're videos, but we couldn't get into the town, or all the towns. The snack, like nutrition out through the window. The snack machine was just. It was near assaulted, like it was down, it was gone. It was empty by the weekend, like, and we're on a training weekend, and I'll never forget it, because we decided, look, we'd watch a film the next before we were watching Rocky 3, and some of the boys had run the town to get the player we will name nameless, but went in and got food or whatever, but of course one of the players, big packet of crisps, sat down beside Mickey, and we were in the seats behind, and he was eating away at crisps, and he was looking at Mickey. Mickey was looking at the crisps, looking at the player. He goes, well, the player offered Mickey crisps. No. Mickey looked. After the weekend gone, Mickey didn't say nothing. Tuesday night, meeting first. Nutritionist had landed in the train. Spent 45 minutes talking about nutrition and going and what we should be going this year and going. We went out, we said to the player, Jesus, man, he goes, you're eating crisps in front of Hart. What's he going to think? I says, I was kind of wondering he didn't take crisps off me. I thought I was going to take crisps. I said, Jesus, no. So, but no, they're always asked for the crack, And it's kind of like when you're out of...
Did you play Sigerson, Ricey?
No, never played Sigerson at all. Never did any. Never.
Like, you were in charge. McGinley's gone in charge of a team. Dooher's gone in charge of an intercounty team. You're in charge of an intercounty team. Do you find the intercounty gig a tough gig? Is it a hard? It doesn't matter what county you have. Like, do you find it hard, or do you find it? What parts do you enjoy and what parts don't you enjoy?
Look, I know myself, because I probably have to make a decision really on really what I'm going to do with Fermanagh, and it's probably with COVID, and it's become, you can say, probably, have they been as enjoyable as they were in the first couple of years? Definitely not. And it's to me, it is tough. It's going from, because everyone I think nowadays expects to win. Everyone expects, no matter what level it is. Fermanagh, there's an expectation that we should win. We should be challenging for Ulster. We should win Ulster. That's the level. And look, you're trying to get to that level, and it's tough. Probably the toughest thing is going as you've got picking squads, picking teams, leaving men outside the 26 that can't play football. You could have maybe 10, 12 men that are out. That's massive. Not everyone's going to be happy with you. And with me, probably with playing, I've seen it probably all. Like when I first came in, no one really expected, no one expected you to be there. When you get on the team, everything's rosy. When you're near the end of the career, you're coming on, whatever, you might be making squads, you're kind of going, well, look, you have to bite down and do it. And it's hard. It's very hard for the players. And every player, you know yourself, you always want it the best. And every player looks at their own career and says, look, am I going to win? And it is a tough gig, and like I spoke to and is enjoying it, but again, he just found, and a lot of people don't realise probably the work that probably goes into even smaller counties big. I know we played Tyrone or friendly, and we played Tyrone friendly before the league started, and Tyrone were coming in like it's like an army, backroom team or whatever, going this here, and here I was carrying the footballs, and for one, I was laughing at Duker. I was kind of going, you've got a good date, everything set up and going, but that's just the different levels, and look, that's in every sport. You're going to have high levels, but it's probably the amount of work that goes in probably behind the scenes, which is, I do probably honestly think now at the minute, inter-county manager, whatever level, it's becoming full-time job. And I know even chatting the end about it, it's tough. It's a tough gig. It's even worse when you're not winning, because then everyone keeps on. And I do say it before, it's like being a politician. Once you get the top job, someone wants it off you then straight away. So there's always extras somewhere. So look, you're totally that, but look, it's enjoyable in one way when you're coaching, when you're going that there, and then you do get the pressures on you because look, you are judged. You do have a lot of. Sometimes I'm not on social media, but if you go on to whatever, you do get a lot of abuse if the team gets beat from different things. It's usually it falls on the manager, and that's the pressures you take on, and that's it. And look, it's a bit about life, but look, it's experience. If it works out, it works out. But it's a tough gig, and even managing any club, but probably with the county, probably it's magnified due to the fact that you're in the national view most times, like.
Do you think I'm not talking about Fermanagh here, but do you think that county fellas, with the amount of time that goes in and with the pressure that they're, and with the social media and with the fact that you probably aren't possibly achieving with a county that is in the lower grade, do you think fellas are walking away? Do you think fellas are saying, nah, I'm not fucking giving that commitment at all?
So, some fellas are. You have to be real. A lot of them are. We had Sean Quigley walked away like the first year, but Sean was open about it to me, like, and Sean says, "Look, I'm just not feeling it this year." And I said 100%. Shook hands, went up. We had 3 or 4 other boys that walked away. Said, "Look, they will want that there." Some boys walk away, and then again, a lot of players, they do. You find a lot of players do now enjoy, like say, putting in the time in the gym, putting in the time. It's just then trying to get the results, because you have 32 teams and everyone's doing the same. Everyone's striving. Not everybody can win. I think the shortened seasons, it's helped because the players says, right, look, this is a compact season, so we do this here. But on the plus side, and it's probably not been talked about, what I've noticed is it puts more pressure on players, because if you have a shortened season, and we've noticed this in Fermanagh, I've chatted to other county managers, because it's a condensed season, the onus is more on the player now, that really he has to come in tip top shape in February. Like you know when we played, Tomás, we could you might be in your best shape, but you built up and through it. At the minute, if they're going to split and put a new championship season, and really you're only going to have, maybe if they're going from February to June, that's 4 months. As a manager, I don't really want to be spending all my time working on fitness. Yeah. You'd want to find that there. So the player, after he quits the club, he can't go really. Yes, he can go and enjoy himself, but he has to come back in better shape. He has to be coming ready to play now, and he has to be coming, right, I'm at the shape. And I've said that to some of the boys. And split season's it's more sore, because the county player will get his break at the start. Split season will start. As soon as the county season ends, the club will say, right, you're straight back in here, like. There's no it's going to be sore on that, and plus, if you're playing county, and I do think it is, some players enjoy it, other players just they say, no, well, look, we're not going to win, so we're not. And I think that's the same in any walk of life. So.
Can I bring very quickly now? We're nearly done. The 20s and the Sigerson, and I know it's very hard. Can you see, or do you think that the GAA, with the fact that they're going to, like, this is the issue with splitting the season with the clubs half the year and the inter-county half the year, is the 20s, like, because sometimes the 20s, when they're not allowed, I think if you're a 20 player and you're good enough to play senior, that you should be allowed still to play with your 20 group, because I think it's important that you do. I think it's important for your own development. But you think that the GAA should corner off and take it out of, like, the inter-county managers will need their players. The Sigerson teams will need their players. The 20 managers will need their. Should they just corner off, or is there no space for the bloody thing? Is there no space? Is there an issue there, do you reckon?
I think, look, it's hard looking because I know we had with Fermanagh being young, we had 3 or 4 players on the team. Like in fairness, we have a great relationship with the under-20s managers, and they were more or less content that they trained with us, and then once they gave, we were knocked out, they can go then. But they were more or less content that they were training with us, bound to be 100%. But if we had beat Monaghan, then you would probably come into this year then that they would have been having to play Anthem. Now, personally, I would have no opinion, no problem with them going out and playing it. But then the GAA rule dictates that if they're in the senior squad, they can't. It's hard because getting that you would just need a separate window for the Sigersons, and you need a separate window for the 20s. It's very hard, and there is no at the minute there is no space in the calendar. Look, by right, if it pushes on into July, August, September now, you're into the club season. And I don't know the question. I don't know the answer to that there. Like Sigerson really,
nobody does.
January. It would probably have to be in January for them to have full access, and that's the only thing. And then if you really wanted to, you would maybe have to push the seniors back to March, and let the under-20s run off in a knockout in February. But it's to me,
the last question, Ricey, is I was always asked, and I used to always get a fit of laughing when I'd see it happening. To be honest, I shouldn't have been laughing really, but I was laughing in my own head. Somebody says, would you ask Ricey what you say to the Gooch? He says, because the Gooch wouldn't sleep for 3 months after it. What would he say to the Gooch during matches?
I never really spoke too much to the Gooch. I have to laugh. The Gooch gave me a lot of abuse too. I made him roaring in my face one time in the 08 final, and he was technically correct. He says, you're not fit to mark me anymore. He was technically correct. And I think I had to say to him, well, he says, but they reckon you're not too big of a threat anymore, so I moved on to somebody else. And the two of us kind of looked at each other. But no, we would always, we'd always have a bit of, usually any of the times maybe you were marking, look, yourself. There's always a bit of sly. He could put the ball over the bar and he could wink or do something with you, and then you say, right, you can nail into him next, and you might give him a comment back. So to me, probably I think probably it was maybe a wee bit overstated, but no, I was never too harsh on the Gooch. Maybe I'd say maybe Kerry folk, maybe he could have a different view on it, but I always thought I was reasonably fair. It's just funny that way, but maybe. You should probably have a different view, and I'll have a different view, and that's our opinions. And hey, I'm sticking to it anyway, Tomás, and that's all I can say.
Well, the Gooch was a great player, but I think he'll go down in my mind as the greatest Aussie rules tourist of all time.
I do mind
he was outstanding.
I do mean he announced his retirement maybe on the team bus that day after the second test. He said he announced it to the bus. He had everyone quiet. I do mean that. So I think he probably will go down as one of the greatest. I think he will go. Well, I'm going to say tourists, but I say he'll go down as one of the greatest players. Of the international career. It was funny when he announced it. So I took as I said, the warm round of applause on the bus kind of signified that he will go down in history. So.
Ricey, thanks a million, boy, and sorry for taking up so much time. I really enjoyed it. It was a pleasure to have you on Comhrá Le Tomás in association with EIRGRID, and absolutely delighted. Whatever you choose to do in the future, we wish you all the very best, and when we catch up again, we'll have another couple of laughs. Bye. Thanks again to our sponsor EIRGRID, proud supporters of the EIRGRID Under-20 All-Ireland Football Championship and leaders in Ireland's pursuit of a cleaner energy future. Don't forget to follow, subscribe and review. Go to Míle Maithagah.